Henry Creel, he starts off with this quiet kid who doesn't quite fit in, the sort that teachers are going to call sensitive, the doctors label as concerning. Now, his memories are a mess from early on, parts missing, parts rewritten by cosmic nonsense. His life story is kind of like one long, unreliable narrated DLC. Now, while exploring a cave one day, he kind of finds a briefcase that some very responsible government types have misplaced. Inside is a piece of shadowy supernatural entity. Henry opens it because nobody in this universe respects, like I said, horror movie rules, and installs the worst software upgrade imaginable. He gets psychic powers, his biology changes, and something ancient starts, like, subletting his brain. He's not overflowing with friends at this point, but he does care about Patty Newby, who's basically the one person quietly suggesting, have you considered not becoming an interdimensional lich? Meanwhile, Dr. Brenner provides psychological abuse like it's a loyalty program, encouraging the shadow entity to take full control. Now, Henry does try to resist. He even stops himself from killing Principal Newby, which is the moral bar lying flat on the floor, but eventually he gives in. Family murdered, Patty nearly killed, Henry carted off, villain origin story speedrun is complete. From there, Henry's worldview, it kind of like curdles completely. He basically decides that human civilization, we're talking, clocks, calendars, small talk, it's all pointless. He hates time so much that people he curses literally hallucinate his creepy grandfather clock everywhere. It's his way of kind of saying, by the way, your Google Calendar is an absolute lie. And then come the spiders. Now, he becomes obsessed with black widows, not in like a really wholesome nature documentary kind of way, but in a like highly efficient murder artists are my personal gods, that kind of way. Now, he decides that spiders basically equal elegant apex predators, kind of like bringing order. Humans equal flies with Wi-Fi making a mess. So he volunteers quite happily to become Earth's new spider-flavoured apex predator. Now, whether the shadow creature made him kill or simply encouraged him, this bit is kind of murky. His memories are scrambled and partly blocked. Henry, he wakes up in a lab. Brenner tattoos 001 on him. He becomes experiment number 1, gets tortured and studied, and later has his powers suppressed with a device that's on his neck. Brenner then says, what if we did this to more children? And then he invents MK Ultra with extra evil. Some of these kids, they grow up with powers. One of them we know is 11. So Henry becomes like an orderly in the lab. He plays helpful brother figure to 11, and he gives heartfelt motivational speeches like, have you tried fueling your abilities with rage and trauma? Henry convinces 11 to secretly remove the chip suppressing his powers, which is a mistake because he immediately kills the guards. He massacres children and staff. He delivers a long villain speech about humanity is rubbish. He invites 11 to join him and then remake the world. She politely declines, hits him with a literal power of feelings, and launches him through a dimensional rift into Nightmare Land. This is the moment he starts becoming Vecna. He eventually arrives in a ruined alternate world. He meets a massive cloud of intelligent shadow, shapes it into a giant psychic spider creature. That creature becomes the Mind Flayer, and Henry basically becomes its evil project manager. He learns to psychically take over various creatures wandering this nightmare dimension because some kids collect Pokemon and other kids collect interdimensional murder beasts. Now, their relationship is complicated. Henry keeps trying to fully control the shadow entity and its shared hive mind. The entity responds like a party X and forces him to relive his worst memories on repeat. It's a very, very healthy dynamic. The hidden enemy is kind of like, aka, why Will Byers can't just have a normal bike ride? Vecna, Henry, after his full goth evolution, decides to test whether a human can be used as a psychic Wi-Fi router for the evil dimension. Now, he picks Will Byers because Will is quiet, he's artistic, he's sensitive, and basically you, but younger, if you ever rolled a wizard with low constitution. Now, he sends a monster to grab Will. Meanwhile, 11 accidentally ends up opening a giant portal while doing psychic phone calls in a lab. Now, this, Mother Gate, is unsurprisingly bad news. Will tries to escape the monster. He runs home. Doors unlock themselves. Not the monster. That's Vecna doing remote control. And Will gets dragged into the other dimension. He holds out for days like an absolute champ, then gets captured. Vecna kind of strings him to a wall with vines, very on-brand interior design, and then says he'll do beautiful things together, which is always the wrong sentence. Will survives. Barb unfortunately does not. The monster gets defeated, but now Will has a psychic connection to Team Evil, which is the world's worst party favour. In 1984, they use Will as a psychic doorway. They possess him and then they unleash monster dogs. 11 shuts the portal like slamming a laptop lid and then ruins their whole vibe. Will gets possessed via space heater, shouting and family love, basically IT support, but emotional. And that brings us to 1985. We have a leftover piece of evil goo. It wakes up again because Soviets open another portal, never a boring day. Vecna starts possessing rats and people, melts them into like a big meat Voltron, and builds a giant body made of, well, everyone. It injures 11 and temporarily kills her powers, but the portal is closed again, and then Evil gets unplugged again. In 1986 is Vecna's kind of like his serial killer wizard phase, we'll call it. Vecna now lives in this creepy attic mode. He's plugged into a mass of vines, kind of like the world's most unethical charging dock, and from there he meditates, he schemes, he opens portals by mentally torturing teenagers with trauma, very subtle, and he targets kids who are grieving, who are guilty, anxious, depressed, basically anyone already having a bad time. He invades their minds with nightmares, he cranks up the horror, and then he kills them to power open new portals. He needs 4 deaths for this master plan. First is Chrissy, a popular cheerleader, secretly miserable. He haunts her with visions of her abusive mum, spiders, clocks, the full anxiety package. She levitates, she dies in front of Eddie, and we all collectively decide clocks are now evil, and that trending song on TikTok, Chrissy, wake up. Anyway, then we've got Fred. Now he's racked with guilt over a past car crash. Same process, hallucinations, terror, death. Second gate opens. Next target is Patrick, abused by his father. Things escalate from nosebleed to oops, you're cursed by a psychic lich very quickly. Then we've got Max versus Vecna and the power of music. Now, Vecna sets his sights on Max, who is drowning in grief over her brother Billy's death and blaming herself for it. She starts seeing the clock, hears things, zones out. Classic like Vecna has subscribed you to the Bad Dreams newsletter. Now, Nancy and Robin, they visit Victor Creel and they learn something vital. Music snaps people out of Vecna's control. Yes, the official weakness of the undead horror wizard is musical bangers. Now, at Billy's grave, Max gets fully pulled into Vecna's nightmare world. He pins her up in his creepy mind palace, vines everywhere, villain monologuing at full volume. Now, in the real world, her friends slam her favourite song, we all know it by now, running up that hill into her headphones. Inside the mind world, Max sees a window back to reality open. She rips free, she sprints through flying debris, red lightning, and escapes because of the following: resilience, friendship, Kate Bush. Vecna is furious. The rest of us add the song to our playlists. He finishes terrorizing Patrick, the basketball kid. He kills him in the lake and then opens a third gate at the bottom. Energy surges into the real Creel house at the same moment, so the group realizes that Vecna is using the upside down version of the house as his base. The next day, Nancy, Steve, Robin and Eddie, they go through the lake gate into the upside down. A swarm of these flying murder bats, called demo bats, attacks them. One of them tattles on them and Vecna clocks that they're there. As Nancy tries to exit back through the gate, Vecna pulls her into his mind world. Brenner in the memory suddenly turns and talks directly to Nancy, but it's Vecna puppeting the memory. He corners her and he says, right, now that you've seen my origin story, here's the trailer for the season finale, and he shows her these visions. He shows her Hawkins being ripped apart by 4 gates, a massive terrifying creature over the town. Think eldritch, not, screensaver on your PC. Then he lets her go on purpose, telling her to warn 11. Very kind of like, I want you to know how screwed you all are kind of energy. Then we've got the battle of the minds, like this multi-front boss fight. In the desert, Brenner and Owens, they tell 11 straight. Henry's alive, he's Vecna, he's the one killing kids. Right then, Sullivan's troops, they storm the base. Brenner dies in a haul of bullets, finally, and 11 escapes with Mike, Will, Jonathan, and Argyle. 11 realizes that she can't get to Hawkins physically in time, but psychic long-distance aggression? that she can do. This brings us to Max versus Vecna versus 11, featuring Kate Bush again. Vecna eventually overpowers them both, and he drags them into his red mindscape, pinning them with vines. It is really not going well at this point. Steve, Nancy and Robin, they fight through the vine traps to get to Vecna's physical body in the attic, and then in Russia we've got Hopper, Joyce and Murray get back to the prison. He decapitates a full Demogorgon with a sword, and this hurts the entire hive mind, including Vecna and his vines, across dimensions. As a result, this means that the vines that are holding Steve, Nancy and Robin, they let go. They reach Vecna's body, hanging there, plugged into the house like some horrible organic router. They Molotov him, shoot him, ripping him out of his own mindscape. And then 11's last push and Max's fate kind of works like this. Inside the mindscape, Vecna is moments away from finishing Max. 11 tries one last tactic, actually talking to him. She blames Brenner for making him a monster. Vecna says, no, it's all me. And he drops the real bombshell. The big sentient shadow cloud, he shaped it. The Mind Flayer isn't his boss, it's his creation. Vecna is the main will behind everything. 11 is horrified. She loses focus until Mike in the real world gives her a very heartfelt pep talk. Basically, I love you, you can do this, main character energy, go, go, go. 11 finally breaks free of the vines. She blasts Vecna away from Max into a pillar, just as elsewhere, Nancy's shotgun sends his flaming corpse out the window. They run outside to finish him off, and the body is gone. Because of course it is. The gates open, and then we've essentially got a technical victory, but a catastrophic cost. Because Max dies. Actually dies. Heart stops, body broken, and it's Vecna's fourth kill. So as soon as she goes, a final gate tears open in the attic and merges with the other three, creating these massive sort of like chasms across Hawkins. 2 days later, 11, Will and the others, they finally arrive back in Hawkins and they see the damage. Huge rifts, smoke, people displaced. They visit Max in hospital. 11 tries to find her in the psychic void. She gets nothing, it's just empty. Will, who still has a bit of that old psychic connection to the Upside Down, can feel Vecna. He tells Mike he's hurt, but he's not dead, and it's not going to stop until they kill him for real. So for the next 19 months, Vecna vanishes. Steve, ever the optimist, declares he's probably dead. Everyone else, led by Will's ongoing psychic spidey senses, go with like, no, he's definitely still here. So the gang, they set up shop at a radio station, and they start doing crawls, which is like guided upside down expeditions looking for Vecna. It's like D&D dungeon crawling, except smaller and with like more trauma. And they do actually manage to find nothing useful. Meanwhile, the military covers the giant hell rifts with steel plates, like that fixes it. It builds a giant fortified zone in town square, and it starts running science experiments in the Upside Down because nobody in authority ever seems to learn anything, which then obviously brings us to 1987. And this is kind of like the schemes of Mr. What's-It, because even eldritch monsters can rebrand. Now Vecna, he resurfaces. Same attitude problem. Not much has changed. This time though, he's targeting younger kids, not teens. He calls them weak in body and mind, which is rich coming from someone who lost to Kate Bush. Now he wants 12 kids as vessels, and he plans to plug them into a horrific tree in the abyss. It's lovely, really. Now he takes a new persona, an imaginary friend figure that little kids in Hawkins called Mr. What's-It, and he appears kind and gentle and helpful, like if Clippy the paperclip were evil and into spiders. Now he does the following. He warns kids about monsters. He gains their trust. He then sends actual monsters to kidnap them. One of his targets is Holly Wheeler. A Demogorgon breaks into her house. It wrecks her parents and it drags her away to the pain tree, where she and the other kids are stuck in vines like very unhappy Christmas ornaments. Then we've got the showdown at Max Z, which is military versus monsters versus wizard corpse man. Then everything goes to hell very quickly. Will senses it first. That the prickle on the back of his neck, hive mind Wi-Fi reconnecting, Demogorgons attack en masse, soldiers panic, kids run, flamethrowers finally do something useful, and just when it looks like the army might scrape a win, Vecna himself steps through the gate. He proceeds to do the following. He shreds soldiers with vines. He pulls grenade pins with his mind, because why not? He yanks Will towards him, calling him his first vessel. and announces his grand plan of using kidnapped kids as containers for whatever horror he's cooking up. Then he disappears back through the gate, smug as ever. He sends 3 Demogorgons to finish off Mike, Robin, and Lucas. Will, who has had just about enough of this entire franchise, reaches further into the hive mind than ever before, unlocks Vecna-style powers and kills 3 Demogorgons instantly. It's a very polite way of kind of saying the student has become the "please stop invading my brain, master." And this is kind of the stage where everything is moving toward the final confrontation. Worlds overlapping, plans converging, children trapped in the pain tree. Everyone is realizing the fight just isn't with Vecna, it's inside the Mind Flayer itself. The team prepares for the end game. Free the kids, sever the hive mind, and then deal with Vecna once and for all. Following that, we've then got the merging of worlds. The barriers between Hawkins and the Upside Down, they continue to break down. We've got spores are falling, rifts widen. It becomes clear that Vecna's goal isn't just portals anymore, it's full integration. 2 worlds, same horrifying decor. Reality starts to look like someone modded Indiana with, like, you know, permanent apocalypse settings. And then we've got the return to the cave and the truth that Henry just didn't want to remember. Vecna chases the escaped kids and Holly back to the cave from his childhood memory, the same one that freaked him out earlier. And they all watch this key memory play out. We've got young Henry. He meets the wounded Russian scientist. He opens the stolen briefcase. He finds the glowing stone. The shadow thing infects him. The scientist begs Henry to resist, and the shadow says, "Find me," and moves into Henry through his gunshot wound. Henry panics. He uses his powers for the first time and he kills the man. The realization hits Will hard. Henry didn't start this. He was infected, used, twisted. Will begs Henry to fight it. Henry refuses. He insists there is no difference between him and the Mind Flayer anymore. They are just one. And redemption is off the bloody table. It's very cheerful. And then we've got Vecna's last stand, which is kind of like, fine, we're going to do this the hard way. So the party reaches the pain tree in the abyss. The Mind Flayer appears, upgraded boss form unlocked. 11 dives into the entity from the inside. She yanks Vecna loose from his tendril life support, and the final battle properly begins. Inside, we've got 11 versus Vecna, psychic slugfest. Outside, the party is fighting the Mind Flayer physically, because they're all kind of like hive linked. Hurting one weakens the other. Vecna is shoved toward like a giant spike. He tries to attack 11 with his monstrous left hand, and then Will steps in, fully embracing his psychic ability. He restrains Vecna and he basically says, "We're done being scared of you." He rips Vecna's left hand off. 11 impales Vecna on the spike. The Mind Flayer dies. The hive mind collapses. The kids at the pain tree are freed. Vecna is still barely alive because villains are like that. And Joyce, having had the absolute worst year imaginable, she solves the problem with an axe and removes his head from the rest of him. And that's kind of how Henry Creel, spider enthusiast, psychic child, nihilist wizard lich, finally stops being a problem. No matter how powerful you are, how many monsters you command, or how many spider god speeches you give, you can still be taken down by a telekinetic teen. A mixtape and a party that just refuses to split. Never split the party. That's the key moral, right?